So, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, why, hello, I am Mr. Fluffles. You can call me Justin. I am a college-going student. Who are you?
I am Ashley. I am a recent graduate, unemployed poet, which is, you know, unemployable to the nth degree. But that's the fun part of it.
And you're forgetting successful Twitch streamer?
Okay, that's
Did
actually the
you?
most ridiculous thing that's been happening. I keep getting emails, which I'm gonna have to turn off.
That was insane though. It was like 300 viewers
Yeah.
at once.
It like peaked at 427, I think. I still don't know what happened. I don't know if it was like an actual host or if it was like she like auto hosts just like the art tag and like that's what happened because it like never sent me a notification that like I was being hosted. I just know that somehow she was the top referrer and that was fascinating
You were a big-time art streamer.
for a wee moment. What year of college are you in, by the way? I always keep forgetting.
I am technically, it's all technical because I'm technically a junior,
Okay.
but in my program, senior, because I came in with a bunch of credits from like AP classes and things like that. So I was like pushed forward in my program
Ah,
when
so
I
you were
shouldn't
one
have
of
been.
those kids, like first week of school, where they like ask you like, "Oh, what year are you?" And you're like, technically I'm a freshman, but I'm a sophomore by credit hours."
Yeah, basically. But yeah, and my major, I'm a social work.
That's so cool.
So
You know, actually,
that's
Fareed was a social working major.
really.
Yeah, he went to school for social work, and he does a lot of like charity work.
Oh wow. I've never heard of that. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was one of those like fascinating things that like I learned from like meeting him at RTX and just it made a lot of sense like in hindsight. I was like, oh yeah, he works with people. He's like the liaison between like the company and the talent, and like it makes sense that like he those skills would transfer over from social work.
Yeah, that actually makes total sense.
Yeah, so you never know where you're gonna end up. He started off
Right?
working like he was actually thinking about going to like where like the Dakota pipeline was like gonna be built and like joining like the protest movement there. And then he got I think that's when he got his job with Maker Studios back in the day.
That's such a weird rabbit hole to like go down.
He was
Like
also almost a
from
doctor
like
once, so free to live many lives.
of course, he is a man of mystery.
But yeah, I think
That is
that's
only one of the lives he's told us about.
yeah. I think that's always an important thing to remember, like, as you're getting towards, like, the end of, like, your college, is that, like, many things will happen after this. Many things will be unexpected.
Yeah, I could be like the mystery man YouTube series.
You could.
That's actually so interesting, but it makes total sense.
And so to that, I'm curious, what are your plans right now for, like, graduating? Are you planning on graduating this year or within, like, the next year?
So I have to stay an extra semester because I don't have enough like university electives
Mhm.
done. So I have to stay for like a semester of there and then I could graduate. But technically I'm gonna be done with the program this year.
That's really
So
cool. So then you just get to
yeah,
take, like, fun.
I would, but I'm gonna see if I could do a minor in psychology.
Ooh.
I feel like that'd be like a better, uh, not waste of my time.
Yeah, and it, like, definitely crosses over well with your major.
But yeah, I have no idea what I'm gonna be doing because usually after you graduate from the social work program,
Mhm.
you get into like case management and things like that. But I was thinking of going into graduate school to get my master's, eventually get my license, so I'd be a LCSW licensed clinical social worker.
Mhm.
But that's a long way away.
Yeah.
And then I had like this mini college life crisis like last week where I was like,
Ain't that a
and I was
mood?
like, right? And I was like, okay, as soon as I get out of college, I'm gonna work for a year, save up my money, and then like go to like Japan for a month and like live my life.
This is always that
Because
struggle of like if you want to like jump straight into your career and like go like get a job or like get like you're talking about like people go into like the casework, or if you go and like get your degree, or if you take like that key like gap year or take some like vacation time to like enjoy yourself. Most people don't end up going back after that. I don't know. Kind of
that's the
that like
thing.
double edged sword of like if you make that decision, you have to know that like you may change your mind.
Because I see, I mean, some people go back. Like there are professors in my program that are currently like doing their PhD, and they've been like working in the field for like 20, 30 plus years.
Mhm.
So, I mean, there's always a chance that I'll go back, even if I do like lose sight of like that
Oh yeah.
social work license, things like that.
Like in the long run, definitely. I just mean like that
Yeah.
like immediate thing for like the back to school like doesn't always happen. Like what
Hmm.
happened with like me in grad school, like one of my
Yeah.
friends, Deanna, she was taking a gap year. She was like one of the only people in like our year who if they were like applying to graduate school like decided that she wasn't doing it immediately like senior year. She was gonna like take a year off, do her applications like this next year, and then see what happens. And the rest of us just kind of like jumped into it with applications, and it was kind of like a now or never type thing. At least like how I felt with it, because I'm like I don't need grad school, but if I'm gonna do grad school, I'm gonna do it now. Otherwise, I just want to be in the writing and like making things. And one of my friends
Yeah.
who started his grad school program, he just got like his first assignments back from his students, and now he has to grade 15 essays this weekend. So I'm kind of
Ooh,
happy that didn't happen for me right now.
yikes. Yeah.
That's the
I
fun part of academia that you will inevitably have to teach.
like, I don't, I feel like I don't want to get stuck in the trap of academia, but also it would be like fun to like teach students and then see them become like awesome people in the future.
Yeah,
But
and that's
the
another
grading
thing.
like it,
It's like you would do like social work, you would probably only really have like the choice of like doing it in a college or like a university.
yeah.
And I think if I ever went into like teaching, I don't think I'd enjoy it in like colleges and universities as much. I think I'd really like to do like middle school or like high school English.
Really, with all those like the horrible children.
I like the youths.
Oh,
Their
the
minds are
youth.
more open.
No, the youth are getting worse these days.
That's what the old people always say.
Yeah. Am I getting old?
Yes. When I don't know how to work the TikTok app and I can only enjoy TikToks via like Twitter and YouTube, I know I'm old.
Yeah. I feel like that like threshold of me being old is like finally passing, and I'm like, no. And as I like slowly like reach out and grab my mochiatas and things like that.
You just have to struggle through, your early 20s. Once you get past like 21 and like some people like party, I'm like I feel like 23, like most of us are like dead.
I mean, I can still party. I say with a questioning
I'm
voice.
like good for you. I was never capable of partying, so
I can throw down.
throw down.
That's how you know I'm old.
That's that sparked another like random thought. There was this article about how one of the frats at UT, after they heard about the White Claw shortage, they bought like 3 pallets of White Claw for their frat.
Oh my,
It was like seventy five
that,
hundred dollars worth of White Claw.
jeez,
They're gonna be
that's
throwing down this semester.
that sounds amazing though. Not gonna lie, like like a free supply of White Claw. Well, it's not 75,000, dollars worth. But yeah,
Frats, you gotta pay for it.
you just gotta sneak into the frat party. You don't have to be a frat.
Gotta get one of those snazzy wristbands.
Ooh, yeah.
That's all I know. That's
That
the extent of like my frat party lore. Is that you get wristbands. Live near them, or at least I used to. I hear them party. I see everyone drunkenly walk out of the party. Just kind of be like, ah, yes, I'm here in my sweatpants and drinking my Mountain Dew and eating my Taco Bell at 2 a.m. This is it.
they're doing the and you're just like chilling, living the life.
But again, that comes back to like you living your life. Do enjoy whatever you want to do after like college. Like, just because I was saying like, you may not go back to like that plan. Enjoying and like feeling out like what you actually want to do. Because I think that's really interesting that a lot of us don't get that kind of break in between college and jobs. Like, most of people just like jump in straight from like either high school into a job or like college into a job. And like having this break right now is like really freaky and fascinating. And
Yeah, how's that going?
I have ideas. It's going interesting. Especially because like I think I've been going through like a weird just, mental time with like my energy has been like all over the place. Like I've always had issues with like maintaining my energy over the years. I have to pound coffee like crazy just to, be a normal functioning human. But like recently it's been I think I just need to like get out of the house like a lot more and do I don't know, more of my projects outside the house so that I like can't fall asleep in places. I just have
Yeah,
like no
I
energy. And I think that's one thing that like school at least had me do is that I had to stay awake for those hours and then I'd crash the moment I got back home. And
like you're forced to like stay awake,
yeah,
and then when you're at home, you can pass out whenever.
yeah. My biggest struggle has probably just been the fact that like my body is like really confused as to like the constant go 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 of like college and like stopping, especially because I was go 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 in college and I was like that in high school. And like this is the first time that like I've stopped and I think my body is kind of broken now because it doesn't understand how to compute that. It's like, what do you mean we're not staying up all night like working on homework? We're not rushing to like finish this essay like all night and like we have to keep studying for this thing. We have to write this thing. We have to do these revisions. So I think
I
now
feel like this is a I feel like this is a bad analogy, but it's sort of like when a train is put into commission, out of commission, and it like starts rusting up
oh
immediately.
my god. Yeah, that feels real
Uh,
though.
yeah,
And my body's just like, we don't know how to function in this way. And so that's been an interesting thing because also a lot of my health problems come back to like if you're not as active, my medications like buckle down and like make you even more tired. Like if you're not doing things. So like I don't know. It's a thing that like I literally actively have to be doing. Like you have to be out and about like burning energy because like the medication makes you tired. So I'm just like, great, great, that's going fine. But like I've been running into an issue of like I have a lot of things that I want to do and I feel like I have no time to do it because I have no energy to do it. Like I have plenty of like waking hours, but not enough will to
that's
do them.
that's even though you don't have like the energy to do that, but I've I admire that about you that you always have like something you're doing. Like you're always either working on an art piece or your like articles or your poems or your YouTube or your new YouTube or like it's just awesome seeing like someone like just churning out new stuff
I'm glad that it
all the time.
feels like that because like I'm definitely like grabbing at like anything to like maintain sanity. I'm like, okay, I gotta like make something today. And like that keeps me, I don't know, sane. Which is like I think that's how I've always been though. Like I always have to be like making something. I've like hella craft bins in my house because I've just accumulated stuff over the years because sometimes it'll be like 2 in the morning and I'm like, I want to make something. And I just start making like a tripod adapter or something random out of like hot glue and cardboard because I get bored.
A tripod?
Yeah,
You
I made like a holder for
that's
my
so
phone that attaches to like my Joby tripod so you could hold it upside down and like it won't fall out. Pretty snazzy.
that is like I've never been that handy in my life.
I just like I'm not real like engineering. Like my family thought that I would be like an engineer or an architect when I was little because I always did nonsense stuff like this. Like I tried to make like a robot out of like my boombox and like other stuff that I had, and I made this like wheelchair out of like a Hot Wheels car and like Valentine's Day cards. But like I'm not practical crafty. Like I'm there's a bunch of crap here, and I think I can tape it together and make it into something that'll stay together.
Okay, wait. Can we go back to the wheelchair made out of love Valentine's cards and Hot Wheels?
Yes. I
Like how,
uh
why, and like how?
I had a baby Bratz doll, probably in like
Mm,
first grade. Like they had like real big heads and real chunky little legs. I wanted her to have a wheelchair, so I got like a Hot Wheels car and got some Valentine's Day cards. Just layered them in like a little chair format. Layered some more so that it could like hold up her leg. And just kind of wrapped some tape around it. Then I could wheel her around on a table.
that is so wholesome and so strange at
Yeah.
the same time.
I also used to have those like littlest pet shops, and I had like a
Oh yeah.
shoebox, and I had like a little house that I had made for them. So I had all this clay, like furniture and stuff. I made a hammock out of some netting for like marbles or something. I
Wow.
was always doing nonsense like
Yeah.
that.
I can see where the engineering part can be. Like when I was little, that I wanted to do like inventions and stuff, but I never made anything like that. I feel like I was just like slamming rocks together or like throwing junk that I found in the garage together, like together. Wow.
Did you have siblings growing up?
He was he was like he's 7 years younger than me,
Oh, dang.
so I had like a lot of free time, like in between that.
I always find it interesting, like just thinking about people who like have siblings and people who don't. Like if we get like more bored and like we're led to like be like, what can I do with this random stuff just like around here?
I was so bored as a child. Like I would constantly be in my backyard, but I think I took the more like imagination, like role play route. Like I would always imagine like I was in like on an adventure in my backyard, stick and things like that. But I guess we all find ways of like filling our boredom. I played with sticks. You made wheelchairs.
Yours is actually really interesting. It sounds a lot like how like my mom grew up because she's 7 years younger than my Thea and like my uncle, and so like they were in like older grades when she was little. Like they didn't want to play with her because it wasn't cool, and so she was always alone. And she had a bunch of imaginary friends that she'd play like hotel and like restaurant with, and she
Aw,
what is it? She used to make, I think her other cousin, who, she has a cousin who's like, I think a year younger than her, and then her daughter's a year younger than me, which is also kind of funny. Um, and she used to make her cousin like go outside, like to one of like the windows and like open it up and pretend like it was a drive-through. And she would make food in like the bedroom like it was like a kitchen. She'd give her tray and make her come back around.
that's so cute.
So I was like, I think that's what like again, you gotta find ways to like entertain yourself. So she didn't have her cousin over. She just gotta play with your imaginary friends.
Actually, tying this back into like the creative process,
Mhm.
I th when I was younger, like the imaginary aspect, I think that's when like I started writing a lot. Because like my family always like had books for me, so I was always like reading things. Like uh, there was always like magazines, and in my attic there was like hundreds of like kids books from when I was growing up.
Dang.
Yeah, and so like I remember uh, in like specifically like a memory, I was in New York in my grandpa's like jewelry shop, and I remember like taking one of like the copier papers and then just like writing a story. Like, it was like it like went since there were no lines, it, like slanted
Mhm.
and it like it filled the entire page. And I remember always being like proud of those stories. But I think that's like where I like first started writing,
Mhm.
and it's been like sporadic throughout the years, like writing in bursts, basically. Like I wrote a lot when I was younger, and then I stopped. Wrote a lot in middle school, stopped, and then my big writing burst is in college, which is kind of strange, but you know.
I think that's pretty common. Like, because I remember writing a bunch of stories when I was back in like elementary school, writing things about like our class found like a random cat when I was in elementary school, and we like kept him in our school portable like all day one day.
Oh, wait, that sounds like animal abuse.
It was like there was a stray cat. There's we were a bunch of second graders. We put all of our jackets
Mm.
in the middle. This cat sat on it. I'm trying to remember what we named that cat because I wrote a little like short
Oh,
story on it. But like my teacher got like a carton of milk from the cafeteria, and we put pieces of yarn on the sides of our desks so that the cat could like play with it. And then I think we had like a school carnival
oh.
at the end of the day, and like one of the teachers took him home. Like,
So from what I heard, I thought you said that you put the stray cat in a porta potty,
no,
and I was
in
like,
a portable. Have you
what?
ever been in like a portable
Oh,
classroom?
no, I
Oh
haven't.
my god. Oh my god. Maybe this is just
What?
like, I don't know, San Antonio overcrowding thing. But every
Mm.
school I've ever gone to has had portables, which are like classrooms that are kind of in like, they kind of look like a mobile home. Like, I don't know, like outdoors, like classrooms. You go up like a ramp, and there's like usually two per like portable like classrooms. And like we had those in my elementary schools and my middle school and my high school. And it's kind of just where like overflow classrooms go.
I have never heard of that, honestly.
Yeah. Did you go to like
That,
a smaller school or like I went to the biggest
oh,
school district. I think it's the biggest school district in Texas.
I just, I think that's not a thing up here in the Northeast.
It does get cold
Like,
for you guys. It would kind of not make
yeah.
sense to like send kids into like the freezing outdoors because it does get very cold in those classrooms in the winter.
And
And
yeah,
we're
and I don't
Texas.
think there's like a lot of space in like cities, so you have to like have a an established place. But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, now I gotta look up if like I don't know, the general like East Coast has like portable classrooms. I was like, we have so many of those, like every school in San Antonio, because inevitably you build the school and you get too many students, and you gotta put them somewhere.
I feel like that brings up like a lot of like problems with school districts here,
Hmm.
like overcrowding.
Yeah.
Because I know my high school, um, it's like over 3,000 students in the high
Jeez.
school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they just recently like added an entire building for freshmen. It's it's insane how many students are in like this like district.
Yeah, I think we had 2,600 in my high school my senior year. And um, what is it? They were building a high school like near us because they had like maximum capped. They were having to send students to like other high schools because we just didn't have enough space. And so when they built that high school, they started it off with I think it was like They literally started it off with like the first class would just be freshmen, and then next year it would be freshmen and sophomores. Next year it would be freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, so that they could, grow into the space and slowly get teachers, which I thought was really interesting.
Ways they find around like overcrowding.
Yeah. What field can we put more classrooms in? Do we really need this like soccer field over here? It's like, can we put one of these in the parking lot? Can we what is it? At one point they were renovating part of our high school because they were redoing like the HVAC, which is like the main like AC thing that like goes through our high school. Our high school was built in like the 80s. And so it was like the last one in the school district that hadn't gotten it or something. And so they kept having to close off like wings of the school for like a month or two. And so that meant that like 10, 11 classrooms had to be moved every couple of months. And so there were tons of people who were having to do classes like in the cafeteria or like in the gym. And then at one point the cafeteria was getting renovated. So people had to have lunch in like even shorter increments than they had it before. So it was like by the time you got through the lunch line, like lunch was over.
Oh wow.
It was pretty bad. I think that was my freshman year of high school.
Yeah, that sounds pretty bad.
So yeah, in order to like fix overcrowding and like old stuff, you have to also, kind of destroy everything for a while. Because I think that that's what they had to do. They couldn't make enough food for everyone as fast as they needed to, so they had to renovate the kitchen. And that meant that it was even worse for a while.
I'm just like imagining like a trailer park home. I mean, yeah, like a trailer park, but it's for schools.
I mean, you could make a school out of just those. Like, honestly, it would be easier to get to classes. That was one of the most convenient things about, I think my sophomore year, I had a Spanish class that was right next to my history class, and then I could go right to the bus loop outside. So I was always like the first one there. Our bus loop was crazy because everyone rode the bus home. And so everyone would just like wait outside in this place, and you got to check all the buses and see if your bus is there. And if you miss your bus, or if your bus had a sub bus, you'd be stuck. Got to sit on the bleachers outside in the Texas heat.
Oof, yeah. Bus loops are always like confusing. Especially like I always felt bad for like freshmen. There was always like a group of like 20 freshmen who missed their bus in like the first few days of school. And I was like see them sitting outside while all their buses are leaving, and I'm just like, I hate.
That's why like eventually I became like the nerd who would like stay and like hang out in like the library. I was like, okay, they got chess club this day, they have book club this day, they have anime club this day. So if I miss my bus, I'm good like 3 days out of the week.
True.
I was like, I know that the library's open.
So you were like a full-time nerd.
Oh yeah. I was probably like one of the first people in our school in the mornings besides like student athletes or like maybe band kids, because like I was literally there like before our librarian got there, because like my mom had to go to work, so like she dropped me off, I'd work on some homework, I'd do some reading, I'd wait in the hallway outside the library, and I'd be the first one there when the librarian came in.
Oh, yeah.
So, of course, I was like a student assistant librarian. And then I worked in like we had a bistro in our library, which was really cool. We sold like snacks and like healthy drinks, and I made coffee and tea.
So you were like a full-time barista?
Yeah. Just like a full nerd barista, because it was like all volunteer. I was just being like, hey, you want a juice box? But it also meant that I got free coffee in the mornings, and that was a good deal.
Do you think that's where your like addiction started?
No, my addiction definitely came from being like a small child, and like because we used to live with my grandparents. And
I know what you're gonna say.
Yeah, when I was little, my grandpa used to like make us coffee, because he would make his coffee and he'd give us coffee. We'd like watch the news, or we'd watch our cartoons, because it was like we traded off between like my grandpa and my grandma, because he worked for like both Hertz and like Enterprise at one point, so I can't remember which one he did when I was little, but like he'd be on call to like drive a bunch of cars somewhere. It's like we'd watch the news with my grandpa, and then we'd like watch some cartoons with my grandma, and we'd like have our lunches and like do like crafts and sewing and read our newspapers. We were like little adults.
Oh,
But yeah, we all
have
had
your
coffee when we
cafe
were
con
little,
leche.
and we all have a problem now.
Yeah, I feel like same here. A few of my friends are like who are like Dominican. I'm Dominican.
Mhm.
Um, so they all had like the same experience of their grandparents like giving them café con leche.
Mhm. I wonder if that's just a
Like,
Hispanic thing. It's like we give our children
yeah,
coffee here.
we stunt their growth.
My cousin's 5'9". I don't know if it really stopped her.
Oh wow.
I'm like, I'm a shorty, but like I think Bella didn't suffer at all.
Then do you think that's a myth? The stunting the growth?
I think it depends on a lot of like genetic factors, but mostly like your growth you really have to be usually like nutritionally like deficient in like a lot of ways, and like more environmental factors have to happen. It's mostly on like it's predetermined like how tall you're gonna be. Like if you're like a long
Yeah.
little baby and like throughout the first like 6 months you continue to be like in like that higher percentile, you're probably gonna be a pretty tall person.
Mhm.
It's like I think it's more predetermined, and unless like something traumatic happens, like you go through a phase where like you're malnourished or you have some kind of like
All
illness in
you
there.
grind.
Yeah, if you just had coffee and like you got scurvy at one point because you weren't having your vitamin C.
Yeah.
Maybe a bad bout of scurvy would make you shorter.
I feel like a bad bout of scurvy would like do more than make you shorter.
I actually have no idea what it does to you besides, make you sick.
Isn't like it's definitely like deadly.
Yeah, it's a vitamin C deficiency. It's like you have way too much like usually like sodium and like I don't know, just other things. It's again what used to happen to like sailors and stuff, and like they'd be coming across the sea in their little boats, and they didn't have any fresh fruits or vegetables, and they're just eating like a bread and like preserved jerky and fish and stuff like that.
That's so I feel that's so interesting. Like imagine like you die just because you don't have like oranges.
Yeah. My mom was just watching literally like, oh my god, what's the name of this TV show? It's called Poldark, and it's like, I don't even know what era it is, probably like late 1800s or something in like England. And like there were like villagers who had gotten scurvy because they didn't have like fruits and vegetables. And so one like rich girl like literally like buys a bunch of people oranges because they literally had scurvy.
That's the solution. I wish our problems could be that easy now.
Yeah,
Just buy a bunch of people oranges.
problem solved, guys. I mean, you can't really overdose on vitamin C, so like oranges are always like a good answer.
But now we have like emergency and everything.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if like emergency does the same thing or if it doesn't. I know that like pure like vitamin C supplements, like doctors say that you can't like take too many of those. Like there are already a lot of vitamin C in them. But if you feel like it makes you feel better, like keep popping them. I feel like I watched a documentary on that in like high school because I was in a microbiology class. That was also like a pathophysiology class. So we talked about like illness and like health a lot. And my teacher was like a super health freak, and he was like, vitamin C is like great for your body. Milk is cancer. Like don't have processed ham. It has so many nitrates in it. It's basically like there's all these detergents in your foods. And my friend Rudy was like, but I eat like slices of turkey and I have like a jug of milk like every couple of days because he was on like baseball team and he was always trying to like bulk up and like have his food, and my professor was like, you need to stop that. So Rudy was always
I
like,
hope
sir, I'm gonna
he's, like,
die.
I wonder if he's traumatized now. Like, am I feeling this sick because I drank all that milk in high school?
Rudy definitely like freaked out about it sometimes. I had a couple of classes with him because I had a lot of classes with most of the people that I knew like senior year because we were all in the same like Avid class, which I don't know if you guys have Avid. A lot of schools don't. It's like
Uh,
a class for like students who predominantly come from families who haven't like gone to college or
mm,
what is it, students who are like doing well but like need that like extra push to like get the good grades. And so I was in like that class with like a bunch of my friends, and they were in like all my other classes. And so like I saw Rudy like several times a day. And like that boy was always either like freaking out about like health things, freaking out about not doing homework, or he was just a goof, like generally. He was pretty funny
I
to just
feel
to like
that.
watch and panic.
Friends like that are always like fun to have around. You're always like panicking, but then you see them panic,
Yes.
and you're like, I'm okay. It's bad, but it's okay.
Maybe that's another thing like I miss about school, like knowing that everyone else is freaking out. Like now that I'm isolated, I don't have that like constant like, oh, everyone's panicking around me. I'm just like, oh God, other people have jobs, people have like children, they're getting married, and I'm over here like, I'm gonna write a poem today and maybe make some gifs. Like I don't know.
No, Ash, that's what Twitter's for.
Twitter's for making the gifs and posting the poems.
And for saying like that everyone is not okay.
Oh yeah. I love me some depressed memes.
Depressed memes are my aesthetic.
Truly. Like what would we do without like in the age of isolation, what would we do without social media?
Honestly, we- it's I wonder how people like live when like they live like 30 miles apart from each other,
Yeah.
because that's like total isolation.
That's why I was just reading an article about how there's like a much higher rate of like suicide in like rural towns and rural areas just because of that like isolation from people.
Yeah,
And then even when you live closer to people, that's why in places like Tokyo, there's like a lot of like suicide because people feel isolation in like their jobs and like their general like lives from each other. So it works
and
both
like
ways.
overwork. The whole thing with um Japan and like overworking, like suicide. That's whole
Yeah,
like
it's scary. That's why there's such a huge, I think, video game culture there. Cause like people need that like escape.
yeah. Otakus. If you're not an otaku, you're like dying.
That's so sad. But also, like, it comes back to like what we were talking about earlier, like how you, what is it, like mentioned SP7. Like, do you think so many of us would like fall in so deep into like YouTube channels or like TV series these days if we didn't need like something to fall into?
True. Because like we people tend to like gather um like in communities and things like that. Like the SP7 community, RT community. It's just like happens naturally
Hmm.
because they're like a group of people that like the same thing as me. We should be friends. The internet does that like well because you're isolated by staying at home all the time,
Yeah.
but you also find people who you can like find a common place with as well, which is strange.
We're all behind our screens together.
Dude, it was so strange from going like the entire summer, like only seeing my some of my close friends like every few weeks or so, and then just my mom and brother, to 20 to 30 people every day
Yeah.
when semester started. I was just like, I like people. I miss this because like you get like a fake sense, like a faux sense of like connection over the internet
Yeah.
that you don't that it's you're like trying to create a connection similar to the one you find in real life. Like, and it's interesting.
The whole reason I started streaming. I have no
Yeah.
friends here.
Not to like, I mean, I'm not trying to like downplay like internet friends because I have like some of my best friends I found like on the internet. It's just like a
But yeah, it's a very different
interesting,
thing.
yeah.
Like it's like, oh, like these are the people who I talk to about these things. But it's like you can't like go over for like a hug. I can't be like, can I just cry right here? Is that okay? Do you want to like
uh,
go and eat and just like talk about nothing for a while?
Dude, talking about nothing is I when like online, I feel like I or over text or calls or stuff, I feel like I have to have a purpose. But if you're just like hanging out in person, you don't have to have a purpose to do anything.
Yeah.
Like you just
Hadn't really thought about
honestly,
that. It's like you gotta at least like be like, hey, I got this new meme, and then you can go off from there. Like normally, you can just be like, hey, how you been?
unless you don't have like social anxiety and you
Ha.
can just talk to people whenever.
You mean real
Wouldn't know what
people
that's
just go
like.
and like, hey, I wondered how you were. What is that?
I wish I had that.
I'm so not that person. People are always like, why do you never message me? And I was like, because I never message people first, because I have a fear that I'm bothering them.
Exactly. Ah, I feel that so much.
But yeah, I always get in trouble for that because people are like, "Why do I always have to message you first?" And I was like, "Cause I don't know what you're up to."
I'm sorry. I don't know. Like, am I intruding on your life? Do you want me in your life anymore?
I'm like, I know I have no life, so I'm over here just like chilling.
Yeah. That's why I'm always like, you can always message me, but no one does because they're like, they probably have the same thing.
Yeah.
We're just a bunch of like socially awkward people being awkward, trying to be not awkward, which creates a loop of awkwardness.
We're all in Struggle Town together,
Yeah.
which just means that we're gonna have very interesting, generations in the future, probably.
Oh yeah. I'm not sure how like I feel like there will always be like that normal human connection, but also that human connection is going to be much different because especially with children now that are always online
Yeah.
and I I don't know what's like we were in the last like generation that didn't have social media like at our fingertips um, when we were growing up.
Yeah, we at
So
least
I
had
feel like
until
we
like
just
the MySpace years.
yeah. Oh God.
I think about it often.
Wait, what was your username on MySpace?
Oh God. Like I know I just used my name, but you mean like the little like URL handle that you could have, right?
Hmm.
God, I feel like it was something really dumb. It was like hearts and go-karts or something.
That's so sweet.
Because we used to have this like mini golf place here in San Antonio that had like go-karts and like putt-putt.
That's so that's so much more like wholesome and not like edgy and cringe as mine.
Oh, I was super like edgy and cringe on MySpace though. So like
Yeah.
wholesomeness aside, what was yours?
Whew. Shadow Pimp 125.
Shadow pimp. The pimp is what got me, but why is it a shadow pimp?
I was uh uh oof.
Did you
I
have one of those
was
like money
cringe.
backgrounds?
Oh no. So I had this very like iconic picture in my friend group because it's so cringe and bad. It's me like in a I was in like jeans and like a white button up that was like loose and then I had a loose tie around my neck and a backwards like cap on and then I remember I had my mom take it And that was my profile pic for years.
Amazing.
So bad. Like the cringe of like early MySpace
Hmm.
years.
I saw a
I'll
picture the other
never.
day that was like probably I couldn't even place like what year it was probably from. It was just like a meme that someone had posted on Facebook because I don't know what your like middle school was like probably. But like my middle school was like everyone was in like a punk emo band
Oh
and
yeah,
had YouTube
yeah.
channels and everyone had the scene hair. Like we all had the bangs to the side. Everyone
Mm,
wore Vans and like checkered belts and like that was everybody in our school.
oof. I don't think that was everyone in my school, but there was I was like friends with those people.
I'm like the more I
Um,
think about it, the more I'm like, was everyone's school like all just emo kids or was that just mine? I think we are maybe more scene than like emo, but just imagine a
yeah.
bunch of like Mexican scene kids.
Did you have a name for the scene kids?
No, I just knew
Like,
that like there were some people who were like more like edgy than like the other ones. Like there were like the cool scene kids who looked like I don't know, they were the cool ones. I don't know how to describe it. I'm like there was like a group of
yeah.
them that was like the cool kids that looked like I don't know, maybe they were in like a Hollister ad or something, but they still had like that scene hair, but they were like I don't
Yeah.
know, really cute and they like did their makeup and like worked out and stuff. And then there were like the kids who had like the wolf tails and stuff and crazy
Oh,
eyeliner.
my in my school, I don't know if it was just my friend group, but we would call after like my friend group like moved out of the scene, um, like the scene phase. They used to call the other scenes sceney weenies. Such a dumb name, but I loved it so much. I'm just remembering all the cringe
Oh yeah, I'm like
from
thinking
like,
back to I was like, man, the way that we like used to dress, the music we used to listen to is still the music I listen to now. I love like emo, like punk pop
oh yeah.
music.
I feel like the emo phase has come back.
Yes. Oh my gosh, there's even like a trend of I'm trying to remember what it's called now, because there's like a new like scene kid.
Really?
Yeah. God, I'm trying to remember. I saw like a YouTube video on it. They like went through like the Tumblr tag and it's like whatever I can't remember what it's called, but it's literally like a revival of like scene culture.
Oh no, I feel bad for those kids.
I'm like, do I like this more or less than like the high school kids who are like the Kylie Jenners?
Oh yeah.
Like I don't know. I was like, do I want them to have that cringe phase or I want them to be like these are like 25-year-olds who are 15? I don't know.
I feel like they need the cringe phase though.
Yeah, you gotta
If you
look
don't
back on
have
your
the cringe
photos and be
phase,
like, "Oh, I looked terrible. Why did I do
yeah.
this?" Instead of like, "Actually, I look pretty good." Gotta you need that ego boost in your 20s when like everything else is falling apart. Be like, you know what?
At
I've done
least I'm
better than
not
this.
that bad.
Yeah. I think that's what your younger years are supposed to be for. You're not supposed to be like, I peaked. Never want to peak in high school.
I feel like I kind of did, but not really. I feel because like I was more like awkward. I didn't have like any like best friends growing up. It was mostly my family and things like that. But in high school, I like found like my group of people that like I just had fun with. So I feel like I kind of peaked in that way,
Yeah.
but it was a small peak.
Yeah, kind of similar in like the sense that like I think at the beginning of middle school and the beginning and end of high school, like I had a lot of very like close friends. I think probably like beginning of high school and the beginning of middle school. Like that was like the closest I was with like my friend groups. And then like after that it's like in San Antonio I say that I have like two friends like now who like I'm close with like my friend Brenda and actually like my friend Patrick who's in the military so he's in like Japan.
Oh, wow.
And I was like those are probably
I,
like you know the two people from high school who like I talk to every like 6 months regularly.
I have like that group. Um, I had a very strange I'm just very strange in general. Well, I, I feel like that's that makes me not sound strange. But
I'm weird.
I, I'm a weirdo. Okay,
Have you ever
guys?
seen me without this hat?
But I went to like a youth group, but I was like an atheist,
Uh-huh.
and I found my best friends there, weirdly. Um, and I'm still friends with like that whole friend group,
That's
which
cool.
is awesome.
Yeah. Do you go to school in like the town that like you grew up in?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
it
That makes a huge
because
difference.
oh yeah, because it's a state school,
Mhm.
and it's literally across the street from where I lived in high school.
Dang.
And well, in high school, I went to a program similar to what you said. Um,
Abbott?
what was it? Yeah, Avon. It was similar to that, but it wasn't like a required thing.
Mhm.
It was more of like a extra after school sort of thing
Hmm.
during the summer. Um, but it's called like Upward Upward Bound.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that.
Oh, yeah,
I think we
yeah,
have it too. I'm pretty sure because that's like a camp that like kids have at like universities here.
yeah. And I went there, and I also have friends there, friends from there that I'm still in touch with. Yeah. So I knew the campus very well from Upward Bound. And strangely, I ended up interning for Upward Bound completely unrelated from my social work program,
Hmm.
which which was strange but pretty cool.
Yeah, that does sound pretty cool. Like always something that like you're personally connected with is always nice to help out with.
And it was kind of an easy internship,
Mhm.
be- because I knew the like program directors um, from high school, and I was well liked, I think. So it was pretty easy like transition. My new internship though, I it, I don't know how it's going. Hopefully it's good. It's like at this mental health community center.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna be like seeing what I, because mental health is um, an area that I want to go into with social work. So it's gonna be interesting actually doing stuff in that field.
Yeah, like getting a feel for it.
So I feel like I'll like have like a headway of where I want to go after this like school year, because during that like college life crisis I had last week,
Mhm.
I was like, what am I gonna do with my life? Do I even want to be a social worker? And it was all that going through my head.
I'm really
I'm
curious
looking
about
forward to it.
like if those things that you want to do with like social work and like your career like do those like feed into any of like the creative things that you do? Or do you feel like those are like more
So
separate from each other?
I feel like it's all connected in a way.
Mhm.
Because there was one of the uh, one of the poems I wrote. Um, I wrote like a poem like a year or two ago, and I like posted it somewhere, and it was about sort of creating. It was like this imaginary space I like imagined. It was like a desolate like winter field, like it's snow everywhere. It's like during a blizzard, and it was a house in the middle of that, and inside it was like warm and cozy, but inside there were people from all like creeds and races and backgrounds, and they were just surviving together against this cold, which is sort of like one of the main aspects of social work.
Mhm.
Like, we're all in this together. We all should like help each other out.
That's a really cool concept though. Like I could feel it as you were describing it. I was like I don't know, ideas like that. Like I could definitely
I feel
feel that.
I feel like I explained it better than I wrote it, honestly.
I mean, it's always in like hindsight with like things, especially like if you've been distanced from a project. I remember like my freshman year, or not my freshman year, whichever first year I was doing like creative writing. My professor was always telling us like we'd do like a draft of something, and then she'd tell us like not to work on it for at least like another like 3 weeks, just so you like could get some time away from it, so you could like rethink like how you felt about it and like maybe just see it differently, like that space or that feeling. Maybe you should revisit that.
Yeah, I should. I have like a lot of unfinished poems that like I just like wrote in one go and then I left it to like sit and just nurture by itself, hoping hoping that it'll grow into something by itself.
Story of my abandoned life. Everything that I've ever written. It's like, will I come back to you, or am I just gonna be like, I wrote it that one time. Don't feel like coming back.
That was enough for me.
Sometimes that happens. Sometimes it's like, I don't have anything else to get out of this. And like that's okay. And other times I'm like, something else needs to happen with you. But what? And how? The interesting part of what's happening right now. Because like, I have 2 weeks left of this month. Yes. I'm looking at my calendar on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've a lot of like poetry contests, like either they want you to submit by like October 1 or like they open October 1 or do like September 30th. So like I have like 2 weeks to do probably like 3 poem revisions that I'm pretty happy with and like send them off into the world. And so
Ooh.
right now I'm like, how do I feel about you guys? And I have like a stack of poems that I'm like so about. And I'm like, I feel like you guys need something. And my goal for the next 2 weeks is to figure out what you need.
I would ask what contests they are.
I have no idea currently. I have a big list that I should probably share with everybody at one point. Because, like, I got this big writer's market book that just has, like, hella contests and, like, different journal submissions in it. And, like, a lot of journals are, like, open, especially if they're academic ones, like, for the school year. They open up, like, September 1. And you can submit usually poetry and prose, like, at least through, like, a winter for, like, that journal. And then a bunch of other ones. Most of them are for people who are already, like, kind of published. Like, this is the whole reason why I'm doing this thing is because it's, like, such a nonsense of, like, hey, unless you've been in a journal or, like, this magazine before, you can't get, like, into, like, a bigger magazine, or you can't get a chapbook of, like, 20 pages of poems published. And then you can't get a full collection published unless you've had a chapbook published. So it's like a giant rabbit hole of Struggle Town. But yeah, I'll probably put like a list together of all the ones that like don't have major restrictions on them and aren't like, you have to live in this state. You have to be an already published author. Like a lot of them for like Poetry Magazine, you have to have been like published in there within like the past year. So it's like a bigger award for already published people.
I looked into a lot of contests. I think it was last year or end of last year because well, I do this a lot where I'm like, should I tell like the backstory first? But then if I tell that backstory, I need to tell the backstory of that backstory.
Me. I'm like, is this relevant?
But so I basically last year I took a poetry class, and that really opened my world to poetry a little bit more, because I got into writing again. Well, when I started college, because I was like writing essays and poems in class, and then I would get like A's, and I've never honestly gotten an A before college in writing. So I was like, whoa, this doesn't seem real. So then I like started just like writing my own poem, um, and things like that. And then the year after, last year, I went into the poetry class because I needed a creative class, and that was perfect for me. Um, and I met my poetry professor, which she is an eclectic but awesome woman. She was really like one of those hippy dippy poetry professors,
Mhm.
but she was also like she came from a background of like strict writing, but it was like no nonsense type of writing. And then she went into poetry again, where she like discovered her sense of writing again. And I sort of felt with that. And she really encouraged me to like start writing again because she said I had I hate saying this because it feels like I'm tooting my own horn, but she said something along the lines of like I write the best poetry she's seen from students in her like last 20 years of working
Aw.
as a professor, and I was like, whoa, what?
That like teacher
um,
validation means like so much.
it does. And then I spent like that like winter break just like writing poems and like starting like story ideas and just like that was like my peak of like um creation of like thinking about the creative process and thinking about like being creative in general. And I was like, I should enter some contests. And I looked up like contests and then I read the poems of winners and I was like, whoa, I am not this good. So then discouraged. But I still have like a list of contests that I might enter in the future if I ever like get into that like creative mode again.
Mhm.
But my last semester really killed like any creative process because
Yeah.
I was like so overwhelmed with everything. So I was like, I don't have time for this.
Me in that like
So
last semester of college, it was brutal. Didn't stream, like barely wrote. I was dead inside.
yeah, it's rough. It's rough. College. It's difficult what it does to like your mental state. But yeah. So yeah, that's my story on the test.
Intriguing. I was like, especially with like that discouragement with like seeing like what people have like written in before is like totally like sometimes you read stuff for a magazine and you're like, this is so not like anything I write, like either in like a good or a bad way. You like feel like either these people just don't write the same style or like any kind of like the subject matter that I do. I don't know if like I belong here. And then sometimes it's like, okay, these people are doing things that like I didn't know could be done with poetry. And like this is
Right.
really good and it blows my mind and I should not be here. So it's like finding that
It's
like balance of like the one that like feels like you, but then also like you're not selling yourself short.
because there was this one poem that I read, and I was like, wow, that's like amazing. I can never create something like that. But I'm starting to realize again, that's not the point. You're supposed to create what you can create,
Mhm.
not what others want from you.
Yeah.
You just have to do you. Do you, boo.
Did your professor like how did they teach poetry? Cuz like I've been in classes that are very much like we're going to talk about like I'm going to like read you some poetry. I'm going to recommend each of you like individual books of poetry based on like what I see that like you've written before. Tell me about like your obsessions and then write towards your obsessions. That's how Natalie Diaz taught us to write. And then I had another professor, Lori, who was more like, this week we're doing this kind of like exercise. Like, we're gonna read a poem from, God, I'm trying to remember. like one of them it was literally like each of us had an envelope with like different objects in it. And so like mine had a piece of like a map with like a train track going from like part of like New Mexico somewhere else, like a matchbox, like a loteria card, and something else that was like a fragment of a poem that like we had read. And it was like, and make something out of that.
Oh,
So like we had a class that was
yeah.
like that. And then my last poetry class with Dean Young was more just bring in poetry. And like sometimes like I'll read you stuff or like I'll recommend stuff, but it's mostly every week you bring in a poem and we're gonna read them out in front of the class and like
Oh
we're
wow.
gonna critique each other's.
Oh wow, that's intense.
Yeah. Like in Natalie's class, like my first one, we'd never read them out to each other. She was the only one who ever read them, and she'd give us notes, and she'd talk to us personally about them. Lori, we literally had like each other's papers, and like we were encouraged, like we were pretty much required to like give them back, like all of our comments back to like the person at the end of class, and they were all supposed to be constructive. And then the last one, it was more kind of like verbal comments and like if you wanted to like write something to someone like you could, but it was more like verbal discussion of the poetry like with everybody.
Yeah. My my poem, yeah, it was like a 101 class basically.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of sucked. Not how she taught, because it was a class full of like freshmen
Uh-huh.
who came straight out of high school, and I'm kind of like an old soul already. So I was like, can you please shut up and listen to her talk? It was like that bad. So it was kind of like basic stuff, like stuff like I learned in like high school, rhyme scheme and things like that.
Oh,
But yeah,
interesting.
yeah, it was like very basic. But um, there were also like she had those assignments where we had to like follow rhyme scheme
Mm-hmm.
and create like stanzas and things like that.
Hmm.
Um, but she also had like in time, I mean in class, writing sessions where she would like give us an example or like a type of poetry, and then we have to like create our own thing based off of that. And those were fun. If that video I made like last year, the I forget what it was called, but I posted it in the Discord.
Mm-hmm.
That's based on one of those writing exercises we did in class. But yeah, her teaching style, she tried to like get through the students through like really emotional pieces of poetry, but I feel like it went straight over like most of their heads while I was there in the front like this is amazing. Wow.
That was me and like what is it? I was also that kid like sitting in the front just like trying to like take it all in because I'm also a really quiet person in classes. Like I'd never like say anything, but like I'm there listening and like I'm the teacher's pet and like that way like I'll talk like to the professor like outside of class or like just like generally like
Same.
not in front of people. But like in because the classes I was talking about were like specifically like poetry workshops for like the creative writing like minor. And I took a class before that was like reading poetry. And so like that class was more kind of what you were describing, which is like we talked about like what happens when like you write in a kind of structure and then like what these pieces of poetry are like if you have like these kind of like breaks or if you have these kind of um like allusions to different kinds of things. But we did a lot of like really like abstract poetry and spoken word stuff and stuff that was like I don't know if I've mentioned like C.A. Conrad before, but they do really weird poems that are called like somatic rituals. So like he has these
Thematic
different
ritual.
kinds of like exercises, I guess, but they're like crazy. So like they'll be like sit in a parking lot next to a tree and like listen to it. Go to like different trees and like talk to them. Like only eat like this color of food like in a
Oh
day,
wow.
like and feel that color. One exercise that we actually did for my class, like one of like the weekly like writing exercises, was stand naked in a tub of water in front of your door and look through the peephole for like 20 minutes or something like that and just listen.
That's so what?
You just
What?
listen and then after that you write.
Okay.
Yeah, so we turned in those writing exercises, and then it was like, so how'd you feel about the bucket?
I would love to be in a class like that, honestly.
I really love
That,
Jeff's taste in poetry. Like, I still have like everything that he ever sent us, like all of the PDFs, and like we follow each other on Twitter because I'm like Jeff is like the coolest dude. Like, he's really into. One of the funniest things I think about him is that his favorite poet is like Ezra Pound, but like Ezra Pound is like super anti-Semitic and like he's Jewish.
oh,
And I'm just always like, why, Jeff? But like Ezra Pound poetry is also like some of the weirdest. Like some people say that it's like the most like simplistic poetry because like he has all these things from like different cultures. Like it's really hard to read Ezra Pound because like sometimes it'll just be like a letter that's in like Chinese or something, or there's this really big word or this really weird illusion, and like I still can't understand Pound for my life. Like I'll need the explanation of the cantos when I read the cantos to go along with the cantos. It's just a lot. So like some things were really like just like dense like that, and then some things were really interesting. Like I'm trying to remember the name of this one poet, and he did this thing where it's like it started off with like a song, and like from that song you have like all these pieces like pieced off of it. God, I think his name is Douglas Kearney. Now that I'm thinking about it, if you look up his name, you should be able to see what one of those looks like. And they're just like fascinatingly like structured. They have like these big like booms, and you can like hear it as you read it. Like I found that structure really fascinating. So you kind of like, and so that like C.A. Conrad. Of course, there were like some classics in there. I think we may have read. God, why can't I think of anyone? Like Langston Hughes. We read Hughes. We read.
oh, I know Douglas.
Yeah, it's more of
She
like a
actually,
when you see it, you know.
yeah, I forget which poem of, but my professor actually showed us one of his. Let me see if I can find it. But yeah, he's one of the poets showed in class. That was like one of the like experimental ones.
Mhm.
It was very interesting. Like it's like a different take on how poetry should be.
Yeah, we went through a whole thing where it was like some of these are like very much like rhyme schemes. Some of these are more about like feminism and intersectional feminism. So there are a lot of people who were, there's a woman who was mestiza and from Texas, and other people who were African American or Hispanic. And then there were a lot of people who did them like more music or more performative. There were people like Sia Conrad. And then I can't remember who it was who we saw examples of flarf poetry with. But
Flarf?
flarf poetry is kind of like nonsense poetry. And
Oh yeah.
there's a lot of like poetry where you can use like your phone and like technology to like write it. And so someone had like took like a strand of DNA and like literally like coded like words or letters out of it and like made poetry out of it, I think. And then
That's
what is it? One of the exercises that we did was like a autocomplete poem, and I can't remember what we were supposed to start with. And then like you just go on from there, and like the things that your phone knows about you is like haunting. So like the sentences usually say a lot about you, but it was written by your phone. So that was interesting.
I yeah, those like predictive texts on like Twitter.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
pretty much an extended one of
um,
those. Like imagine writing a paragraph off of one of those.
yeah. Wow. I wish there was a class like that here. I would 100% take that.
I need to just make like YouTube videos where I'm like, this is every exercise that I did for poetry in college, and they were all wild and really fun. I think that's
I'd
another
watch.
thing that I enjoyed about like all of my creative writing classes is that like all of them were very different from each other and very different perspectives on how to write and how other people write. And like I really like trying different things all the time, being like, where do you get this from? Or if I do this thing, I don't know, how will that change my mind about something that I was writing? Like, I was thinking about oranges this morning, but now that I've done this, I see that orange in a completely different way.
Now you think of scurvy.
Exactly. Write a scurvy poem.
Start off with like, aye matey.
Do a whole poem in like pirate vernacular. That sounds very like an interesting exercise.
That, can you please make that like your next poem?
I'm like, I love doing meme stuff. I'm not saying I won't. I'm making a note of it.
The poetry is so unique. I mean, writing in general, but well, actually, writing is not unique, but it is at the same time
Mhm.
because there's so many different perspectives in the world that you'll never have something like that's the same as another person writing. Like if, like for example, oranges, like someone would write about the taste or the smell, and then another person would write about like scurvy
Or that
or
one time
like
I wrote about eating that heart, and that was an orange.
yeah. Oh yeah, the lemon heart
No, the lemon heart was like the drawing that I did. The orange heart was literally
oh
like
yeah.
you peel it apart and I like ate the meat of like a heart.
Oh yeah. But yeah, I find things fascinating. I'm like a child
Oh, same.
in the world. It's like the idea, my favorite idea is the idea of Sonder. Do you know what
No.
Sonder is? Um, it's the concept that like everyone has a life that they've lived, and uh, like that you will never know about. Like that person you pass by on the street is had like a childhood. They have their struggles and triumphs and things like that, like as well as yourself. And that goes for 7 billion people that live on Earth. And I just love that idea so much. But it also makes me sad that like we'll never be able to like know everyone's like stories.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely feel like that. I'm like I want to know how other people feel about this. Like I'm in such a little bubble. Like even with the internet, like the things that like we hear and know, like it's so small and subjective still. Like there's so many sides we don't hear to everything. And
And
that's another one of those like things where it's like whenever people say like, "Oh, what I have to say like isn't important," or "My story isn't as interesting as this person's," I'm like, "But your perspective on everything is like interesting." Like I think everyone like can write if they want to because I don't know, I think everyone has like fascinating little minds.
we're all we're all individuals.
And it's like you either want to share like a combination of like your real life and an imaginary world, or you want to try and tell like the truth as like honestly as you possibly can, or you want to go completely like fiction and nonsense, and like you can live on all of that spectrum and like say whatever you want, and it's pretty cool.
Uh, I love like talking about this stuff, like because it's like, wow, the world is cool.
The world is cool. This is like one of those like
Like,
exercises in like restoring my faith in humanity every couple of months. Like whenever someone wants to come on the podcast, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna feel like I want to make stuff again after this, aren't I? Which is always nice.
see, I left. I'm a good social worker. I left you with a better sense of the world.
Thank you. I'm your first case. Thanks.
Oh, yeah. So let's talk about your past childhood trauma.
Oh no.
Uh,
I should write a chapbook on that though. Trauma always gets published.
yeah, everyone loves a good drama.
That's a really horrible thing that I just remembered. Um, there's this thing called, what is it? Like trauma porn or like suffering porn that
Oh
like
my
people
God.
refer to in the sense that a lot of people who are like minorities in like graduate programs who are like writers, um, people accept them expecting that like they'll write like certain types of poetry and like disapprove when like they don't write what they expected. Like, oh, you aren't talking about
Oh,
like your struggles as like a queer woman, or you aren't talking about your struggles as like a black man and like racism or like those things. Like, you aren't talking about this, you're talking about like you're doing like historical poetry. And it's like,
yeah.
I wanted to do this thing, like I'm not doing what you're expecting of me, but like there's a thing that like people have talked about. I think Sandra Cisneros, like who wrote House on Mango Street, I think she was one of those people when she went to Iowa. I think she ended up dropping out of there. A lot of famous writers ended up dropping out of like the Iowa uh, creative writing program for like discrimination reasons. And I think that school has a lot
Oh
of
wow.
issues with like people expecting certain types of writing from them.
Yeah.
And so that was just an interesting thing that I just thought of right now. I was like,
That's
trauma is like a certain thing that like is marketable, and that poetry programs want people to publish under them and be like, oh, this interesting perspective or this thing that's going to be controversial was like published by one of our writers. And so like they want to bank on that, which is like also like a white establishment using minorities for personal gain, which is like another thing that like I've heard professors talk about, which is
uh,
always fun to have like diverse people and like academia like giving you the tea. I love that stuff.
no, I can't think of one. um, I think I kind of experienced that a little bit because um, okay, so for people who don't know, I'm disabled. I'm paralyzed from like the chest down. So when I when I like read poems in the poetry class, I feel like people expected me to write about my disability. Like, I mean, I did sometimes, but I felt like people like expected that from me. Like sort of how you talked about like the trauma porn, and that I think this happened the other day as well because we had to write like the first assignment for one of my social work classes was to write like who I am. No, it was where I am from. So obviously everyone is like writing from like their past experiences and traumas and that. So I feel like people expected me to write about my disability,
Mhm.
which I did, in a sense. I wrote about like how, like metaphorically, like how it happened, and I feel I feel like because of how like they expected it, they reacted in a certain way. Like some of them like started crying because, I mean, it was something personal, and um, a few of them knew me, so obviously they were touched by it more than others. But I feel like they were sort of expecting that, and because they were expecting that, they had that reaction.
Mhm.
If you if you get what I mean.
I think so. And that's kind of like related to like this other thing because specifically with like disabilities, there's a very similar thing to what we were just talking about. That's God, what did I just forget the word? It's basically like overcoming like a disability, but like that is like a thing that like people are into. Like when you see like those stories on the news that are like this kid
Triumphant.
who was like what is it, like couldn't like
Oh yeah,
walk,
yeah.
and like they got like him on like his crutches, and like these are his first steps. Like it's like that is like also like an aesthetic for some people that is like this this is like a thing that like
Aesthetic.
people like look to like if this person can like overcome it, like you can too. And it's like it's not
I
their responsibility to like motivate you.
I hate that so much.
Yeah, but I'm trying to remember the word for it because we talked about this in my theater class, and like just like when we were talking about like intersectionalism, how like this is like totally a thing that is like way too common for people because it's like, oh, because you are disabled in like this way, because you are this way, like people expect like I don't know, like to pity
Yeah.
you or like to just feel like certain ways. And like if I think there was someone else, there was a girl in our class, I think, who talked about literally like she was in like a grocery store one time, and there's just like a lady who cried like when she saw her because she was like missing one of her legs.
Oh wow.
And like how that like affected her because she was like that is like it's part of like my story, and like she doesn't know like why this happened or how this happened, and like it felt very strange to her that like that evoked an emotional response. And so like her being able to like write about stuff was like her taking it back, like this is my story and I'm going to write about my life in my way that I want to, which is like
Yeah.
I don't know, a way to like combat that like as best that you can. But yeah, I
I,
totally understand like people will see you in like a certain way. Like that expectation is like very prevalent for a lot of people.
I feel like I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I hate those stories
Yes.
so much
I'm like,
because
let people live their lives.
like seriously, I've had like so many people like show me videos of like a disabled person like miraculously starting to walk. But in reality, he had a different type of disability from me, and he had he was like working through therapy to walk, where I physically can't because like my spine is damaged, so I can't.
Mhm.
And people like show me those stories and like, look, this could happen to you too. And like, I try to be nice,
It's
but I'm
like,
like,
no,
no,
sweetie.
no, no, I can't. And or or when people say, but it anything is possible under God, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
sure,
That's another thing that I know with just like so many people who are just, so done with certain people who are like, ugh. There's so many
yeah, I
things
know.
so complex with like that thought. I won't get into it, but I'm just like, oh, some people.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, like, I'm learning how to like deal with my disability
Mhm.
since it's like, eh, my I had like an accident 4 years ago, which crippled me. But I don't need people like messing with my head, those kinds of stuff when I'm trying to figure myself out.
Yeah. You don't need that like
And
how they expect you to be, like reflected on you. Like they're projecting.
and it's like nice. I mean, they're trying to be nice, but they come off as being like intrusive
Yeah.
or I don't know. It's I just try to smile and wait till they're gone. Because I'm not out here to hurt people's feelings. I think about like my disability and like writing. I've had like I feel like my creative mind has developed so much more because like my accident happened right after high school.
Mhm.
So I had like and then it was 2 years until I started college because I was like going through rehab and things like that. Um, so I had like 2 years of like mostly alone time. So I had like a lot of time to like think and process everything, like process my own emotions, how to think about others people's, and that's really how um, I like. I feel like how I developed as a writer because I in high school I was not like I was like smart, but I was like the dumbest smart person because I did not think things through. Obviously, because the accident was my own fault, but uh, it was because I wasn't thinking, obviously. But and then during those 2 years, all I did was think.
Mhm.
So it helped me like develop in a way that I hadn't had before, and I feel like it opened up like writing, thinking like critically thinking about things, which I hadn't done before. So, and that's sort of how like I went from being wanting to be like a computer engineer to a social worker because I realized like the impact things had on people,
Mhm.
how everyone has something they're going through, um, and I wanted to take that and help people with it. And I also took that and implemented it in like writing as well. But yeah, it's been interesting 4 years.
Mhm.
You can say that.
That's definitely like I think for like I don't know, all career paths, like everyone has like that, like you have to have like a point where you, I don't know, think really hard about something. Like either if you've like overcorrected and like gone really in like the wrong way, you end up like really rethinking everything and going somewhere else. So like you have something that makes you realize like, oh, this thing is like actually what matters. Like I've realized like, oh, this that I thought was like really important in the past, like really is like kind of like superficial on like the surface. And
Yeah.
I've had that with a lot of career paths. A lot of things where I was just like, oh, this is gonna make me money, or like this thing is like the cooler thing, or what like people tell you like about stuff that you're doing with your life in general and like who you are as a person, like what generally matters, and like
You should be an engineer or a doctor
yeah.
because they make money, things like that.
So definitely having like that time to just like reflect on your whole life, like I can't even imagine like having an experience like that and then just thinking about everything.
I like to call it my purgatory. It's a little like melodramatic, but
I'm
it's
trapped here
still
now.
yeah. It honestly felt like that because um like it kind of felt like time stopped in a way because everyone else was moving forward and I was stagnant, you could say. But yeah, it it felt like I was stagnant, which was sort of a trap that I had in my own mind, which made me feel worse that I realized. And it was not good for my mental health. I feel like that's something that people, not only people with like disabilities deal with, but like people who like take like a gap year to like, I feel like that's um, a lot of people deal with that, like feeling stagnant and feeling like they have to catch up with everyone,
Yeah.
where everyone goes at their own pace. Like even if like you take a couple of gap years for college because you have to work to get enough money to pay it off, or um, you just feel like everyone's like exceeding like light years beyond you while you're just working away. It's just things take time. Not everyone is going at the same pace where and no one has like the same path. And that's sort of like what had what I had to realize throughout those 2 years, which was hard. And I only actually realized it this last year.
That's good though, because I mean, that's something that I constantly struggle with, like accepting. Like, it's a thing that I know. I'm like, yes, I know, and we all get there in our own time. Yes, I know that, like, we all, like, figure things out, like, along the way. Then I'm like, oh my god, I'm doing terribly at life. It's like, I don't know, accepting that is, like, so important. Or, like, at least constantly reminding yourself that, like, you get there eventually.
It's like those inspirational posts where it's like talking about how this one celebrity didn't do their famous thing until they were in their 40s or
Oh
50s,
yeah,
something.
those help so much. Like, I think there was, because recently Toni Morrison died. There were like a bunch of
So
things like talking about her and how, what is it, like she had her family and like she raised her kids first and wrote like every night after her kids went to bed until like 4 in the morning or something.
yeah,
And like that's how she wrote like her first books. Like, and it's like crazy, but it wasn't until she was like, I think she didn't publish her first book until she was like 40. But it's like, I don't know, all of us feel like we got to get there so much faster. We have to do this thing like now. Like, if we haven't done it by now, we're not going to do it. It's like, I don't know, maybe everyone gave us a complex, like telling us that like Mozart was like some kind of like boy genius or something. That he like peaked.
not to get too philosophical, but I feel like this feeling has to do with like ageism and like our inbuilt like ageist views because we like the young as more like intelligent, beautiful, and things like that.
Oh yeah.
While like toss away elderly nursing home US, while really it's just a complex that we've all developed.
Yeah, because I think at one point
And
people really thought that like old people were like wise and experienced, and now we're like, look at that senile old man.
yeah, there was this. I was in like this um, streamers. I was in a stream, and she like cosplays, and there was a user in chat who also cosplayed, um, but she she felt like since she has been getting older, she can't like cosplay anymore. But she was only like in her 30s,
Hmm.
and I was like, that's some extreme like inbuilt like ageism.
It's
Like,
it's so messed up. Like especially for women, like there's like that chart of
oh yeah,
like celebrity like women and like how old they were cast with like their male like love interest and like how the age gap just gets like ridiculous. Like how the women are always kind of around like the same like 20 to like 30 age and like all the guys keep getting older.
like how Leonardo DiCaprio will probably have like an amazing career throughout his life, while someone like Scarlett Johansson has to like churn out all her movies
I was just thinking that. I was
in
like,
her
maybe this
time.
is why ScarJo is the way that she is. 'Cause she's like, I'm not going to be in the public eye in another 5 years. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I wish like with technology, humanity would move past these like isms.
Yeah.
um, but obviously they haven't.
Because somehow we've found a way to, like reinforce all of our bubbles and
Yeah,
just like intensify them instead of being like, oh, I've learned about what other people are like and that people are complex individuals and that, we're all important. It's more like, wow, look at all these Instagram models. Everyone's an Instagram model. Everyone works out at the gym now. Look at how curvy these people are. Everyone should look like this. And when you see people who don't look like that, you're like, who is this person?
yeah.
It disorients like what normality is and like what most normal people are like skews all of our perspectives.
I was gonna say, um, and all these e-thoughts.
I'm thinking about the bathwater
I
now. I'm haunted.
I I was like we went full circle from like hating the world to loving the world again, and now we're hating the world again.
Because we're just like, why are they like this? Like, because we had like hope in between there. Where we're like, wow, we can see other people like complexly and like these things, and we're like, but other people haven't like come around to that. So it's like we're still like in a bubble of like, I don't know, like
People are so terrible.
I would like to accept people this way, but most people are like bad. It hurts inside.
How? What are your thoughts on like how would I like the whole thing about e-thoughts and like what are your and like incels and
Oh,
like the general like that type of toxic would it be male toxic uh, toxic masculinity?
like incels are
Yeah,
because that's just like the wildest concept that the fact that like because women are like into this certain type of ideal of a guy that's why guys can't get laid. Like it's not their choice.
yeah,
That's the weirdest concept to me ever. I'm
yeah.
like, okay. I'm like, men haven't always been like this. There have always been people who are single, like both male and female. Like this has always been a thing. I was like, up to a point like women were like pretty much forced to get married because like parents were kind of like, okay, we're gonna die. You gotta marry off soon. Like that's kind of a thing that happened. Now it's like, oh, I can wait to get married, and I can choose who I would like to marry. And it's these people who have bad bad thoughts about like, well, I deserve someone to love me. I'm a good guy. Which is just
I'm a good guy. I'm a nice guy.
oh the amount of times I've heard that.
Oof.
But like, why not me? It's like, I'm
I've
not quite sure why, but it isn't.
We've never interacted before, but why not me?
That's a whole other fascinating thing about like, okay, because you mentioned thoughts on the other side, like e-girl thought things. So that is like, I think that's perfectly fine for like a woman to like use her body or like her sexuality to like get views, like get money, like that's your hustle, do what you do. But then it's also like, I have no idea how people deal with how people like interact with them.
Mhm.
Like I can't even wrap my mind about like what that must be like because a lot of the times like with those really like sexually charged or like inappropriate comments you kind of have to like pander to it
Yeah,
and like
like
that's really interesting to me.
I don't I don't know how they can do it. Like if you go to like one of those like cosplay Twitters that I definitely follow, um, that like give like thirst trap photos, um, you look at the comments and it's like just disgusting
Yeah.
comments, and I'm just like, how do you deal with it? I mean, these are the people that give you money, but like, how? I want to know like how they feel like doing that.
And that's like
Like
a
someone
whole
like,
other like because then that makes me think about like I don't know like quite I don't know because I'm still trying to think about like I was like people who type things are different than people who like would say those things in like real life. And then like I don't know which ones are like worse if they were like people who would like say those like to your face or like the people who are like behind a keyboard because now I'm thinking about like people who do cosplay and people who are like closer to like cam girls and then people who do things like stripping and stuff because like I definitely know people who do that and people who work for like Twin Peaks and Hooters and like those kinds of restaurants here. Like I've had friends who have like terrible experiences working in those places. And like
oh yeah,
I'm just thinking about like is it better or worse to like have that interaction at like a distance and like people saying these things constantly at you and like saying like the reactions like but being able to like separate it as like this is a person who like I don't know, I don't have to see or like having these people like in front of you interacting with you but then like you go home at the end of the day and like that's not your life anymore but like both ways I think it's
it's
I don't
like
know how you put up that like mental barrier.
it's like a whole new type of like, well, it's not a new type, but
No.
it's like it's like a more intense barrier that women already have to put up.
Yeah, just like you guys are powerful and I could not. I was like I am a tiny little internet person who is no one and who deals with this way too much. So I can't even imagine people who have hundreds of times my audience. I'm like, what? On my biggest thing, I have like 800 subscribers on YouTube. I have like 600 followers on Twitter, like 400 followers on Instagram. And in between there, I'm like the things that I've read.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm just like I can't even process people who are like massive followings like the Belle Delphines and then even people like Pokimane who like don't necessarily like play off like the sexuality or anything but who are just like women
yeah.
on the internet like I can't even.
It's I wonder if like they feel like more paranoid or like more in danger because of like all those comments and like how that affects them like as they live. I, like the psychology of it
Yeah,
would be like interesting.
I really wonder how Meg Turney is holding up since that whole thing with like her and Gavin
Oh,
like last year or the year before that.
oh yeah.
Like because
Mhm.
she's a cosplayer and she's a pretty public figure. She had a bunch of bodyguards at RTX who were in like plain clothes and stuff, but like they were there and like her and Jessica Negri like of course like they're heavily protected at things like cons. But like I can't even imagine like them just like going around like Meg now that like her and Gavin like moved from like that house and like but what it's like just to go to like your day to day like knowing that you're in your house and like you anyone could like come up to your door at like any time like that's especially when
That
like
was
that's already
so.
happened like I don't know how you keep going after that.
They either have like a really good therapist or have a good like mental fortitude because I can't imagine like being shot at. Oh God,
Oh, now I'm thinking about
that's so.
what is it? Because even for like artists too, like people who do music, what is it? The Ariana Grande thing, how Christina Grimmie got like
Yeah,
stabbed by that guy, and like I was like, these are people who like I think both Christina Grimmie and Ariana Grande did YouTube videos for like the longest time. So it's like these are people who like started off as just like normal like internet musicians, do meet and greets with people. Like same thing with like Meg at like RTX, like just saying her like sit on a couch, like people wait in line to like come and give her a hug. But like what if one of those people is like one of like her stalkers? Like what if she didn't even know? Like that's horrifying.
I feel. I wonder if it's like just a part of the job for them in their like
Yeah.
in the way they think. It's like strange that like content creators have to like deal with security issues.
Yeah. The whole thing of like general like celebrity in the world and like I don't know,
Yeah,
obsession. It's just interesting however that works.
yeah, because that must be like the same thing as like I mean a similar thing to like how serial killers it becomes like an obsession for them and it like builds up over time until they like release it in some like unhealthy way.
Yeah. God, that's so scary. We need a positive note somewhere.
Yeah.
How did Sugar Pine inspire you when they were a thing?
Well, sugar pine. I mean, obviously they inspired so many people because they were just a bunch of friends hanging around again.
Oh.
I don't know, seeing it. Um, they really how do I, they like added to my creative drive in a different way because I sort of go through phases with my creative phase. Um, because I guess you do the same. You do like videos as well as like podcasts and writing and drawing. So you have like different types of creative outlets. And I I sort of had this uh, because in like high school I was really into video editing because like I was really into YouTube and RT content, source fed and things like that. So I was like really into like um, video production. So I joined video production club and things like that. And then Sugar Pine really brought that back, uh, where I like uh, it was like during my uh, purgatory where they like started to get big.
Mhm.
I think. Yeah, like 2 years ago. Um, was it 2 years?
Yeah. 20
Wow.
Yeah, it was like March of 2017.
Yeah, wow. Because that's um, when I started college, like fall of 2017. So, yeah, so I was at the end of my purgatory when they started getting big, and just seeing them create just with their friends, being idiots, but creating something like wholesome, enjoyable to watch. It was something that I hadn't seen
Mhm.
for a long time in YouTube. So I just like felt a passion to like start creating again, where I like started writing video ideas, and I started to like um, get in. I wouldn't really edit videos, but I downloaded like Photoshop, not like illegal Photoshop.
Mhm.
um, but I started to do like Photoshop edits, just playing around with it, and it really allowed me to do something other than just um, sit online all day, which was like really good for me. And I mean, they just inspired me in general, because they were just a couple of friends trying to make it in the world. They were just having fun. And isn't that like what we all aspire to do?
Yeah.
It's like have fun with our friends.
I was just about to say
And
that. I'm like, there's something so aspirational about, like, especially like how SB7 started. It was just like some unemployed boys hanging out, being friends, doing things that they enjoyed, just trying to figure it out like along the way. And like it's very much like I think a bunch of like the audience, like because we're all kind of like young creatives who like want to do something in this field, like we want to be writers or we want to be making videos or something, and like I think we all kind of like saw ourselves in that. So it's like these are our friends is like what the vlogs felt like.
yeah,
Just hanging out with some weird people, and then we made a weird
driving down
community of weird
58.
people.
Yeah. I I mean, I I really kind of don't join in on communities as much. On like part of I've been watching RT for like 7 years. I'm not really into the community as much, but sort of you kind of inspired me to like join the community, because seeing you like the first thing I would do like when I opened a SP7 video after like a few months, the first thing I would do would be like to see if you were in the top comments, because I was like, she's got to be here. If she's not here, something is wrong.
That was one of the most fascinating things. And like people had a breakdown like when I started my Italian class, that was like at the time that they like posted videos. Like where'd
Really?
she
Wow.
go?
So you were like the first like foot into like the SB7 community, because then like I followed you, and then I like joined your Discord. Um, Even though I wasn't really active like the first year or so.
Lurking is a true way of life. I do that in so many communities. And I'm like, these are my friends that I don't talk to. Like I think even I don't know, even sometimes just like knowing that like these like a group of people enjoys the same thing that you enjoy, and like I don't know, watching other people interact. I think in the same way that like the vlogs make you feel like these people are like your friends that you're watching like hang out and like enjoy themselves. You can feel the same way about like a community like talking together about like their day. I
Yeah,
definitely do that in the SP7 Discord sometimes because like I haven't interacted there in like a minute, and like I'm way not active there as like I used to be. But like sometimes I totally just like lurk there and see people talking about their homework or like people coming home at the end of the day and like what are they gonna eat, and I'm just like, oh.
it's really amazing how like communities are built, and like how this community, the SB7 like Discord, is like running, even though SPS7 itself is like coming to a close.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said earlier, like people like build community like naturally, which is something so like human, but it's so amazing.
It's really that, like, it's about the friends we made along the way kind of thing. Like, so much so.
We're all here and get. I this our communities have been like, going through it these past few months. Like with SP7 like closing and then Cow Chop
Hmm.
and then now um, RT cutting 13% of staff. Where like I hope this community like stays strong.
I know. Because, like, that's another thing that, like, I've kind of noticed about, like, the RT community, like, in general, is, like, there's, like, sections of it. Like, a lot of people are, like, very much, like, achievement hunter, Ruby people, and then there's some people who are, like, Funhouse and, like, Couch Hop and, like, SP7, and, like, I think that, like, the people who are, like, into, like, Funhouse, Couch Hop, and SP7 have, like, really taken a beating, like, the past couple months. Like, oh,
Yeah.
SP7's ending, Couch Hop's
Oh yeah,
ending,
Bruce.
Bruce is leaving, people from Inside Gaming were cut. Like, I don't know, there's just a lot happening, but, like, just in general, like, that, like, part of the fandom, it very much reminds me of at least, like, SourceFed, and, like, there was, like, a lot of, like, OG people who left a lot at, like, the same time, and then there were, of course, like, cutbacks at, like, one point, but, like, and then, like, finally, like, the end, but, like, I don't know, at least, like, in between there were, like, pieces of the community who, like, stayed together, but then there were people who were just, like, heartbroken after, like, some people left, and, like, I don't know if some people will be able to hold it together with, like, because even some of, like, the groups, like, after James left Cow Chop, like, it's rumored that, like, none of them have talked to him since he left,
Oh
and, like, I don't know, even, like, groups, like, I really like that SB7, like, is still making it a point to do the podcast and, like, hang out. Like, the fact that, like, they're still seeing each other. I
yeah,
think that's,
they're
like,
still.
a big deal. Like, we're staying friends even if, like, we're not working together. It's like, I know people, like, are really worried about, like, Bruce now that he's, like, left Funhouse, and he's like, these people are still my friends. Like, Bruce is streaming with Lawrence right now.
Yeah, Bruce definitely. I don't think that will affect his friendships. He's like such a good guy.
We all love our hairy dad, Bruce. Be for Bruce, be for Brave.
Very
I really wish they had made that into a shirt. That's, like, one of the dumbest things that I loved so much. I'm just like, Bruce is wholesome.
I mean, now that he's a single creator, he could make a shirt like that.
Oh man, I forgot I think literally earlier he was, like, looking for, like, people to, like, draw merch or something.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. He's becoming an individual. Which is also such a fascinating thing with, like, all these groups, like Steven and Alex and, like, Couch Up, and, like, they've been doing this since they were teenagers. Like, young
Yeah.
teenagers. It's like they're gonna be an individual for the first time in, like, years. It's like, I just wonder
So,
how that's going.
because I feel like, is Kib younger than us or the same age as us?
Kib is honestly, I think Kib's, like, several months younger than me. I'm trying to remember, because, what is it? I think at RTX I was like, you're younger than me? It gave me, like, a life crisis. But yeah, I think he's either 23 or he's about to turn 23. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, and, like, Kib's been in it
I,
for a long time too.
I'm just like baffled.
He's 24. He just turned 24. Okay, so he's slightly older than me.
Yeah, he's slightly older. And then he started when he was young
Hmm.
with his Minecraft.
Same thing with Alex, all those old Machinima videos of them doing, like, collabs back in the day. And
Yeah.
Brett being the a young man that he was back in just freshly come to LA, guiding these youths into the industry.
It's insane how young. This also adds to like that thing of like ageism
Yeah, because
we were
like
talking
Brett's
about.
only like 35, and like everyone calls him old, and it's just because I think because like especially in like our like online media industry, it's so new still that like people who are like I don't know, over the age of like 30 were like the people who were like teenagers when they started it. And so like maybe that skews us to be like, wow, like they've been on here for a long time or something. Cause it's like I remember Ryan Higa, like I saw that boy when he got braces, when he got his
Oh
highlights.
yeah.
Like I remember those days and like he looks the same now. He just has slight facial hair and like that's pretty much it. He lives in Nevada now. Or maybe he lives in LA now. I don't know.
I think it's. Did he move yet, or did he move?
I don't remember. He lived in Nevada like several years ago. I remember that move.
Yeah,
Like, I don't even know
yeah,
where he is now. But yeah, I was like, just, I think it's the fact that like some people have just, we've seen like years of their lives go by. And like, so it makes them seem like so much older, but it's really hasn't been that long. It's like, oh, like we're only going back to like MySpace.
yeah.
Like, that's it.
It's like technology moves so fast,
It really does.
and
Like when you think about how the iPhone has only existed since like what 2007?
no way.
Like it's only been 12 years
Oh,
that we've had smartphones. Like that is crazy to me.
and that's why like every like day on the internet feels like a week.
Yeah,
It's like
because we're taking in so much like constantly. And back in the day, I was like, oh, you had to wait for your browser to like load and you were looking for one specific thing. You weren't like just going to like a news page to like see everything. You were just going there to be like, what is happening here? Or like, what did this website post today? Or, yeah,
how are my Neopets doing?
oh my God. What new game is on Newgrounds today?
Uh, or what was the other one? Mini clip.
Oh my God.
I, so many like hours. Or I used to go on like Nickelodeon.com or Disney or Cartoon Network for all those games.
Oh yeah, those were classics. It's really sad that like most of those games don't exist anymore. There's a
Yeah.
game from I'm trying to remember which website I was trying to look up one time. And cuz like there's tons of like forums where like people have tried to like track down like old Barbie games or like old like this is just like everything that we used to play when we were kids and like it's not saved anymore. It's gone. It's just tragic. But yeah, that's another thing about like the internet now. It's like some old infrastructures are like falling apart, and so that whole like the internet, like everything lives forever on the internet, like does it? Like technology changes. Can we even do that anymore?
So strange. The way you like said it, like the infrastructure like failing, it's like it like frames the internet as like actual buildings, and like some of them are like old and like need refurbishing, things like that. So that's a cool way of thinking about it.
Yeah, it's just a big. I see like the internet is literally like a bunch of little, blocks just like being like shoved together, like a bunch of little Legos. Sometimes you get a little piece where it's like you try and take it out and you accidentally break one of those little ones inside like the hole, and then it's just like done for. You can't use that block anymore. I feel like that's what the internet's like.
It's like have you seen Wreck-It Ralph Breaks the Internet?
No, actually.
That I mean, it's like any other like how like Timmy Turner.
Oh, like when he
No,
goes through like the
Fairly Odd
TV and
Parents.
everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh my God, Timmy Turner
And like
Power
everything
Hour.
falls apart. Oh yes,
No, I want to watch
the Timmy.
that.
Can we have like a watch party of like
Dude, I've wanted to
those?
watch so many things, and now that like Rabbit doesn't exist anymore, I don't even know what there is in the world.
Oh, there's this thing called Cast. It's not the same as Reddit, but it works pretty good. Uh,
I will
where
look
you
for
could like
this.
share your browser. But it's like an application they have to download. But it works pretty well.
Cause yeah, I've definitely thought about it. I was like, there's so many things that like I want to just like have a movie night with everyone. Because I know there's so much nonsense we all want to show each other. Do you want to plug anything?
I want to plug the Amazon rainforest. I mean, no, I don't have anything to plug. If you want to see my sad tweets or my meme tweets, Mr. Fluffles, Mr. and then FLUFFELZ. I created my name when I was into like Captain Sparkles.
Oh my gosh.
And I wanted to be a Minecraft YouTuber.
Dude, everyone had
So,
like really like random usernames back in the day. What was his name? Whose was like something like a banana?
Scene enters.
Yes, oh my god.
Yeah. I miss him.
I was like, I just had a faint memory. I was like, there was Banana Man.
Yeah.
People had great usernames back in like old like Minecraft days. Like people still have like fascinating usernames. Like this is a thing that I need to make like a whole other kind of like deep dive on, which is like the study of like usernames and how everyone has a story behind a username. Like it's either like
Shadow Pimp 125.
yes, like some people have stuff that are like fandom related and like it's kind of self-explanatory. But like some people like you see like pro gamers, like of course like they're a pro gamer now and like that's like their handle that they're known by, but like there were probably some like 12-year-old kid who came up with that at one point. Like it just blows my mind how like all of us have something like that. Like my family calls me Ashley Pie. I was joining YouTube and there was already an Ashley Pie, so they added the MZ and that's how we got here. Chugga Conroy literally used like a random name generator and it used to be Chugga A Conroy and then like a website made him mash it together and now he's Chugga Conroy and people call him Chugga and like that's how he got here. It's like
And
you make that
like
decision when
with
you're
Captain.
like 12 and then you're stuck with it. Like I wonder what kids get stuck
I
with
think
now.
I think Super Panic Frenzy. I remember they did it was like a Twitter question where they asked people to send in their
Oh, they did.
usernames.
I remember that
I
podcast.
I always regretted not sending mine
Shadow Pimp was
because
pretty good.
I was planning on like pairing it with my profile picture from MySpace.
Oh
Yeah.
God, there's so many. Like again, I need to like collect data on this. Make like a Google sheet and just be like, everyone, put in all of like your weird, random like usernames you've ever had, and like tell me the story behind it.
I had like Jblade, a random series of numbers. Intense Gamer 35 was my Xbox username. So much cringe.
That's so funny. I think my cousin's was like Pretty Pepsi is like what like her first email was. Like she used that for everything. And I think it was kind of because, oh my gosh, back in the day, like Yahoo, like email, you had like your own like emoji
Oh,
person. Like that was like the
really?
OG Bitmoji. And like I remember like her email, like she had her Pretty Pepsi like little like person. And I think the Pepsi thing, like she doesn't even like Pepsi, but I think it was because like Britney Spears had like ads for like Pepsi back in the day. Like
So, what?
fascinating.
I wonder. I feel like this is like an untapped like article that you could write.
Oh yeah, like again, for sure. I'm like I could write a whole thesis on like the psychology behind like this and just like how it's such an accepted thing that like I don't think we think about as much. Like some people like you either use your real name or you're making like a company for something. But like people when they're like gaming especially, like you just kind of pick something that's fun or like that you like and you don't think about it too much.
Mm,
And it's like that's what you are. You're known by that.
like Rooster Teeth.
Yeah. Again, we made this decision and like you're stuck with it now. Such an interesting
And
thing that, like, I don't know if any of us think about, like, how much that'll, like, stick with you.
I was thinking about it. Um, it's interesting how like some people like interact with the same content, but they never meet.
Yeah.
Like we've like both of us have been interacting with the same content for like years, but we've only like met like 2 years ago,
Yeah, and, like, through
which is
comments. Like, you said that you were into, like, SourceFed stuff, right?
yeah,
Yeah, so I'm like, that means, like, I'm like, I was following SourceFed from, like, day one, so I was like, there are comments that we could have met through, there's Twitter, like,
yeah.
all these things that, like, didn't happen until, like, I wrote dumb comments in SP7 for some reason.
And that goes back to the idea of Sonder. Like
Damn.
everything ties back into each other.
We're connected, guys. That's the most important lesson everyone should take away from this podcast is that you should imagine each other complexly and realize that, like, there's so much in everyone and everything, and we don't know the half of it.
We should do like a Dora like end of episode. And what did you learn today?
Leave it in the comments below. What was your life lesson? People are gonna be like, I got depressed on that part where you guys lost hope in the world. Or I learned what scurvy was.
Or I honestly don't remember what we talked about.
I know. I think that's the most interesting thing about these is that it's like, what did we talk about for the past, like, 3 hours? It's like, we've gotten here, but how? That's why it's always fun to re-listen to these when I'm actually editing them because I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about this already.
Did we actually just talk about scurvy for 20 minutes?
We may have. There were definitely oranges in there. I remember that.
I guess we should end.
Yes.
You have like a few minutes left.
Yeah, it's funny because I can see, like, the space on my computer, like, going down. Like, I'm watching the little, like, bar and it's telling me, your disk is almost full. And it's like 2.65
Yeah.
gigs, 2.64 gigs, oh, 2.57.
Oh yeah.
It's just really funny to, like, watch it, like, tick down.
Like our time is up.
That's what it looks like at the end of your life. Your hard drive is full. That's actually kind of like a good way to look at the end of life. Your hard drive is full. This is all we could fit on this life.
That's sweet. Honestly. Oh, that kind of made me sad because I was like, well, then people who died young have like small like hard drives.
They didn't have as much storage, but that doesn't mean that what was on it wasn't important.
Exactly. Treat all your hardware, storage hard drives the same.
Don't shake them around, guys.
Yeah. If they stop spinning, just give them a rest.
I just imagine a little, like, shrine for, like, a fallen hard drive. This was a good chat. This was good.
It was. For, like, the first time chatting with you.
I know. Again, these are always the first time that I've ever talked to anybody, and it's the best. Because it's like we're really getting to know each other in this.
It's like a, not like, something similar to like speed dating, like where you, but not. I don't want to say speed dating.
It's like, imagine that, like, you picked a bunch of people to do a podcast with every day for a week, and you did one of these. That could be speed dating. Probably a more effective way of speed dating, because you actually get, like, immersion. But if you don't like the person, you're stuck with them for the next 3 hours.
I mean, was I an enjoyable podcast host? Podcast guest.
Indeed. I learned a lot about life, and I indeed did get, like, a better perspective on the world, I think.
I'm glad. I as well. Especially in the world of poetry.
I know. Hopefully we can make some stuff, look back over, things that we've made and be like, we can change things. We can make new things. And be like, some people write stuff like this, and I don't write stuff like this, and that's okay. And I will compose a giant list of all the journals at one point, because there were a lot that I found.
Please, that would be cool to read.
Yes. There will be one bulk article one day.
But yeah, thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining and offer to coming on. Adios.
Bye-bye.